Henrik had chosen the station because nothing important ever happened there. That was the rule. No politics, no heroics, no dramatic revelations whispered under flickering lights. The edge of map space was excellent at forgetting people, and Henrik had become very good at being forgettable. He wore a name that fit poorly, like borrowed boots, but no one asked about it. Dockhands rarely questioned a quiet exobiologist who filed his reports on time and drank his synth coffee lukewarm. He spent his days cataloging microbial life scraped from ice rocks that would never be terraformed, and his nights pretending the low hum of the station was soothing rather than a reminder that everything around him was artificial, including his safety. He was halfway through arguing with a malfunctioning sample analyzer, an argument he was losing, when the air around him shifted. Not audibly, not visibly, just enough to make the fine hairs on his arms stand up. Years of running had trained his body to recognize that sensation long before his mind caught up. "Still talking to machines when you're nervous," a woman's voice said behind him. Calm, amused, certain. Henrik froze. Slowly, with the exaggerated patience of someone hoping reality might reconsider, he turned around. She was tall, composed, and unmistakably not human, though at first glance she almost was. Pale skin, dark hair pulled back neatly, eyes a deep, reflective red-brown that caught the light too well. And her ears, long, elegant, tapering back in a way that made his stomach drop straight through the deck plating. "No," Henrik said. "Absolutely not." The woman smiled faintly. "That was also my first reaction." He took a step back, then another, until his shoulder blades met a storage crate. "You've got the wrong person," he said quickly. "This station is full of wrong people. It's sort of our thing." She tilted her head, studying him in a way that made him feel dissected without anesthesia. "You changed your name," she said, "and your posture. You even altered your scent markers. Clever, incomplete." "I switched deodorants," Henrik snapped. "That's not a crime. For humans, perhaps not." She took a step closer, unhurried. "But I know your scent, Henrik. I knew it before you knew yourself." His heart began doing something unscientific. "You shouldn't know my name." "And yet," she said gently, "here we are." A cargo shuttle roared overhead, briefly drowning out the sound of his own breathing. When the noise faded, she was still there. Of course she was. "Lady Verana of the Sanguir Compact," she said, inclining her head just enough to be formal. "And you helped save my people." Henrik laughed. It burst out of him, sharp and humorless. "That's flattering," he said, "but I barely managed to save my houseplants." Her expression didn't change, but something behind her eyes shifted. Recognition layered over memory. "You were younger," she said. "More hopeful. You believed science was louder than money." Henrik swallowed. "That was a phase." She folded her hands behind her back. 15 years ago, you helped develop a synthetic blood alternative that freed us from dependence on predation. You gave us choice. You disappeared before you could see what they tried to turn it into." His mouth felt dry. "I didn't disappear," he said. "I relocated, aggressively." "You ran," Verana said, not unkindly. He bristled. "I survived." They regarded each other in silence. Around them, the station carried on with its carefully scheduled indifference. Someone laughed in the distance. A service drone bumped into a wall and apologized to no one. "The synthetic is failing," Verana said. Henrik's stomach tightened. "No, it's not." "It is," she replied, slowly, quietly, the most dangerous way. He pushed past her, heading for the exit corridor. "I can't help you. You haven't even heard what I'm asking." "I know exactly what you're asking," he said, "and the answer is still no." Verana didn't follow immediately. When she did speak, her voice carried something new beneath the composure. "My people are beginning to feel hunger again." Henrik stopped. "Instincts long dormant," she continued. "Dreams, irrational impulses. I have resisted them. Others struggle." He turned back. "That's impossible. The synthetic stabilized neural feedback loops. It didn't just suppress behavior." "You designed it to prevent harm," she said. "Not to last forever." He rubbed his face. "I warned them about degradation. They said future problems weren't billable." Verana's lips curved, just slightly. Your humor hasn't improved. Trauma tends to stall personal growth. She stepped closer again, lowering her voice. I didn't come to force you. I came because you're the only one who can fix this without turning my people into something owned. Henrik looked at her ears, at the stillness in her posture that reminded him uncomfortably of restraint under pressure. And if I say no, then I will leave, she said, and we will regress. Slowly, painfully, and history will call it inevitable. He exhaled. You're very good at this. At what? Guilt, she considered. I prefer honesty. Henrik stared at the deck, then laughed softly. I really picked the wrong week to stop being invisible. Verana's smile returned, warmer this time. You were never invisible, she said. You just underestimated who was looking. Somewhere deep in the station, an alarm chimed. Routine, harmless. Henrik straightened. Fine, he said. We talk. Just talk. No promises. Verana inclined her head again. A beginning, then. He glanced at her, tired and wary and inexplicably relieved. You know, he muttered, most people find me very hard to track. She met his gaze. Most people don't know your scent. He groaned. I really need a better deodorant. Henrik's quarters were exactly as anonymous as the rest of his life. One narrow bed bolted to the wall, a fold-down desk scarred by chemical burns, and a single viewport permanently dimmed to simulate a comforting lie known as night. The only personal touch was a kettle that should have been replaced 3 inspections ago, and a plant that had survived purely out of spite. Verana stood just inside the doorway, taking everything in with polite restraint, as if she were visiting a museum exhibit titled, The Human Who Ran Away. Her long ears twitched almost imperceptibly, tracking the faint electrical hum of the room. I don't usually invite alien royalty into my living space, Henrik said, gesturing vaguely. So if there is a ceremonial protocol, this is where it dies. I am not here as royalty, Verana replied. I am here as a problem. Good, he muttered. Those are my specialty. She remained standing. Henrik noticed it immediately. Sanguir etiquette or predator habit, he couldn't tell which. He pulled out the desk chair and nudged it toward her with his foot. You can sit, he said. I promise I won't take advantage of the vulnerability. I am aware, she said, sitting anyway. You have never enjoyed power. That's not true, Henrik said. I enjoy the power to leave rooms early. He activated the privacy field, the faint shimmer sealing the space from casual surveillance. The station AI politely announced that illegal activities were discouraged. Henrik told it to mind its business. They sat in silence for a moment. The plant rustled as the ventilation shifted. Start talking, Henrik said finally. Slowly, preferably with data. I cope better when there are graphs. Verana folded her hands in her lap. The synthetic blood compounds stabilized our neural aggression centers by mimicking the biochemical feedback of satiation. It worked. For years. And now? Henrik asked. And now, she said, the compound is losing coherence at the molecular level. Our bodies metabolize it, but no longer integrate it. Henrik frowned. That shouldn't be happening yet. It wasn't designed to, she agreed. He pulled up a hollow display, fingers moving automatically. Old habits resurfaced, reflexive and comforting. Show me. She produced a data crystal from within her sleeve and placed it on the desk. Henrik paused. That's very dramatic, he said. You could have just sent a file. You disappeared, she replied. Fair. The data bloomed into light. Charts, scans, time-lapse biochemistry. Henrik's expression shifted from skepticism to concentration to something dangerously close to dread. This is regression, he said quietly. Not failure. That's worse. Yes. You're not just losing stability, he continued. Your bodies are remembering something older. Verana watched him carefully. Predation. Henrik leaned back, rubbing his temples. I warned them. I told them suppression without adaptation would backfire. They said your concerns were emotional, Verana said. He snorted. Classic insult. Call it emotional when you don't want to fund it. She tilted her head. You were emotional. I was right, he snapped, then sighed, which is emotionally exhausting. The plant chose that moment to drop a leaf. Great, Henrik said. Even the floor is judging me. Verana's lips curved faintly. It appears disappointed. He glanced at her. You can tell? No, she said. I am guessing. Humans do that often. He almost smiled. What about you? He asked after a moment. How bad is it? Her fingers tightened together. I feel hunger, she said. Not often, not yet, but it is persuasive. Henrik looked at her more closely now. The stillness, the control. He recognized it with a chill. It was the same discipline he'd seen in addicts who insisted they were fine. You haven't fed on blood in years, he said. No. And yet your body is suggesting you should. Yes. That's unfair, he muttered. You did everything right. Verana met his gaze. Biology does not reward virtue. He huffed a short laugh. Put that on a motivational poster. Silence stretched again, heavier this time. Why me? Henrik asked finally. You could have gone to any lab, any consortium. Because they would solve it by control, Verana said. You solve problems by asking what they are afraid of. He stared at the data, at his own past staring back at him in luminous detail. They tried to weaponize it, he said. You know that, right? Yes. They wanted dependency, dosage schedules, leverage. His voice tightened. I watched my work become a leash. Verana rose slowly and stepped closer, careful, deliberate. And so you cut the leash by leaving, she said, but the leash remained. He didn't answer. You are afraid that if you try again, she continued softly, you will only create a better cage. Henrik looked up at her. You don't joke much for someone who calls herself a problem. Her eyes softened. I am very funny. I simply choose my moments. Well, he said, gesturing weakly at the glowing disaster between them, this feels like a bad moment. On my world, she said, we believe humor keeps the instincts from winning. He blinked. You're telling me jokes are anti-vampire technology? Yes. He considered that. I feel extremely underqualified. She straightened. Will you help us? Henrik exhaled slowly. I'll look, he said. That's it. No heroics, no grand solutions. Verana inclined her head. That is how all meaningful solutions begin. He powered down the display. And if this ends with someone trying to kill us, she smiled, small and sharp, then we will at least be correct. Henrik groaned. I should have become a poet. They moved to the auxiliary lab because Henrik trusted it more than the main one, which said something deeply troubling about the station's safety standards. The auxiliary lab had been abandoned years ago after a power surge melted 3 centrifuges and one researcher's enthusiasm. Henrik liked it. Nothing there pretended to be perfect. The lights flickered as he keyed in his access override. If anything explodes, he said, it was already planning to. Verana stepped inside, her long ears angling slightly as the machinery woke up with a chorus of groans and clicks. This place sounds alive, she observed. That's just the equipment expressing regret, Henrik replied. Old machines do that. He began unpacking portable scanners and laying them out with the precise chaos of someone who knew exactly where everything was without appearing to. Verana watched him, arms folded, expression attentive, but unreadable. You're calmer, she said. I'm procrastinating emotionally, he said. Very effective coping strategy. He gestured toward a diagnostic chair. Sit. I need baseline readings. She hesitated only a fraction of a second before complying. As she settled into the chair, restraints slid into place automatically. Henrik winced. Those are optional, he said quickly. You can disengage them. They're just optimistic about emergencies. I do not mind, Verana said. I trust you. He froze for half a beat, then bent over the console with exaggerated focus. Let's not make this weird. He activated the scanner. Soft light swept over her, mapping physiology that was human-adjacent, but unmistakably other. The data streamed in faster than he liked. That's not good, he muttered. Verana smiled faintly. You say that often. Only when things are actively trying to betray me, he said. Your metabolic pathways are rerouting. Yes. Without permission, he added. Biology rarely asks. He pulled up comparative models, overlaying old Sanguir data with current scans. The divergence was subtle but accelerating. You adapted around the synthetic, he said. Your body's treated it like a prosthetic, not a cure. Verana watched the shifting lights. We believed stability meant safety. Stability without flexibility is just delayed collapse, Henrik said. He paused. I said that once in a boardroom. They asked if I could put it on a slide with fewer words. She made a small sound that might have been a laugh. Did you? I quit instead, he said. In retrospect, a dramatic choice. The scanner chimed. Henrik frowned. Your neural suppression thresholds are thinning. Verana's fingers curled against the armrests. Meaning? Meaning your instincts are getting louder, he said gently. Not because you want them to, because your body thinks you're starving. I am not, she said. I know, he replied. That's the cruel part. She closed her eyes briefly. Sometimes I smell things, she said. Not blood, life, warmth. Henrik swallowed. That's, concerning. You smell like copper and caffeine, she added. He snorted despite himself. I feel deeply seen. He deactivated the scanner and released the restraints. Verana stood, steady but slower than before. This isn't just chemistry, Henrik said. It's identity. The synthetic removed hunger, but it didn't replace what hunger regulated. Predation defined us, Verana said. Then its absence defined us. Now we are between definitions. Henrik leaned against a bench. That's the worst place to be. A warning light blinked on one of the monitors. Henrik cursed softly. What now? Verana asked. Someone noticed my access override, he said. Probably an automated compliance ping. Nothing urgent, yet. She studied him. You are afraid. Always, he said. But this is a familiar flavor. He paced, thinking aloud. We need integration, not suppression. Something that teaches your body a new equilibrium instead of forcing obedience. That sounds dangerous, Verana said. Everything ethical is, he replied. She tilted her head. You joke when you are close to something important. It's that or screaming, he said. Screaming gets fewer grants. They worked for hours trading data and theories, tension easing into rhythm. Henrik explained human metabolic redundancies. Verana described Sanguir sensory hierarchies. Occasionally she would pause, brow furrowing, as if listening to something no one else could hear. Are you all right? Henrik asked during one of those pauses. Yes, she said. Then after a moment, no, but I remain functional. He grimaced. That's my autobiography. A sudden spike flared on the monitor. Henrik straightened. That's new. Verana inhaled sharply. I felt that. What did you feel? Hunger, she said, voice steady but tight. Brief, like a memory. Henrik shut down the active protocols immediately. That's enough for today. She nodded, though disappointment flickered across her face. I do not like being paused. I don't like biology doing surprise tricks, he said. We'll go slow. She met his gaze. Slow may not be a luxury we have. Then we'll invent time, he said. Scientists do it all the time. A chime echoed through the lab. This one was less polite. Henrik checked the console. Great, corporate interest. Already? Verana asked. I leave a trail, he said. It's part of my charm. He shut down the lab and grabbed his coat. We need to relocate. Where? She asked. He smiled thinly. Somewhere even I forgot existed. As they moved toward the exit, Verana glanced back at the darkened lab. Henrik, she said quietly. Yes? If I lose control, she said, you must not hesitate. He stopped, looked at her. I didn't come back to hesitate, he said. I came back to fix things. She studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Then hurry, she said. My biology is getting impatient. He sighed. Story of my life. They left the station on a courier vessel so old it still used physical switches instead of neural panels. Henrik liked it immediately. Anything that required being hit to function felt honest. The ship groaned as it detached, metal protesting like it had opinions. Henrik strapped himself into the pilot's chair and patted the console. All right, he said. You, me, and an alien noblewoman running from corporate ghosts. No pressure. Verana took the co-pilot seat with measured grace. The restraints adjusted automatically to her physiology, hesitated, then tried again. She watched them with mild curiosity. It appears your technology is confused by me, she said. Join the club, Henrik replied. It's been confused by me for decades. Stars stretched into pale lines as they jumped. The sensation tugged at Henrik's stomach. in a way he pretended not to notice. When space settled back into something recognizable, he exhaled. "Where are we going?" Verana asked. "An unregistered research outpost," he said. "Built it years ago as a contingency. Never told anyone, including myself, apparently." "You forgot an entire facility?" "I compartmentalize," he said, aggressively. She studied him. "You ran far. Far enough that my mistakes needed a map." The outpost emerged from the dark hours later, clinging to a barren rock like an afterthought. No lights, no signals. Henrik felt something loosen in his chest. "Home," he said, then winced. "I mean, temporary exile." They docked manually. The air inside was stale but breathable, carrying the faint scent of old insulation and dust. Henrik powered up the systems, lights flickering on one by one. Verana stepped inside and paused. "This place remembers you," she said. Henrik glanced around. "It really shouldn't." They set up quickly, falling into an uneasy rhythm. Henrik recalibrated equipment, while Verana provided biological samples with practiced efficiency. She was quieter than before. Movements precise, restrained. "You're monitoring yourself," Henrik said. "Yes. That's never a good sign." "It is better than not monitoring," she replied. He sighed. "You're getting better at human logic." "Concerning," she said dryly. As hours passed, the data sharpened. Henrik's theories solidified into something dangerously close to a plan. The solution wasn't a replacement synthetic. It was a hybrid metabolic regulator, one that allowed hunger to exist without dictating behavior. "You're suggesting coexistence with the instinct?" Verana said. "I'm suggesting you stop fighting yourself," he replied. "Your biology isn't broken. It's just offended." She almost smiled. A sudden tremor rippled through her. She gripped the edge of the table, knuckles whitening. Henrik was at her side instantly. "Hey, talk to me." "It passed," she said, though her voice betrayed effort. "But it is stronger now. Louder." He swallowed. Okay. That's not ideal." "Understatement," she said. "I am beginning to understand human humor." "Fear-based sarcasm?" "Yes." They shared a brief, fragile laugh that eased something between them. Later, as Henrik adjusted a reactor coil, Verana spoke softly. "If this fails," she said, "my people will not survive as themselves." Henrik didn't look up. "Then we don't let it fail." "That confidence," she said. "It is new." He tightened a bolt harder than necessary. "It's borrowed." A proximity alert chimed. Henrik froze. "That's impossible." Verana straightened. "We are not alone." He pulled up the external feed. A corporate vessel drifted nearby, sleek and predatory. "They followed the data trail," he muttered. "Of course they did." Verana's eyes darkened. "They want control." "They always do." Another tremor passed through her, stronger this time. Henrik turned to her, alarm flaring. "Verana, I am still here," she said, breathing measuredly. "But I am distracted." Henrik made a decision. "We accelerate the test." "That is dangerous." "So is waiting," he said, "and I refuse to let them define the outcome." They moved quickly, tension coiling tight. Henrik initiated the prototype sequence, hands steady despite everything screaming at him not to. Verana sat in the chair again, meeting his gaze. "If I lose control—" "You won't," he said firmly. "And if you do, I'll remind you who you are." Loudly, she huffed. "That is a terrible plan. It's worked on me for years." The machine hummed to life, light bathing her in pale blue. Data streamed faster than before. Henrik watched, heart pounding, as her vitals fluctuated, then steadied. Her breathing slowed. The tension in her posture eased. "I feel balanced," she said softly. "Hungry, but not compelled." Henrik laughed, breathless. "That's it. That's the sweet spot." An impact rocked the outpost. "Or," he added, "we celebrate later." The corporate vessel had locked onto them. Verana stood, strength returning to her limbs. "Then we finish this," she said, "and we leave." Henrik grinned, adrenaline cutting through fear. "I always wanted to end a project with an escape." She met his smile, sharp and resolute. "So did I." Outside, weapons charged. Inside, science held its ground. Henrik keyed the final upload. "Let's rewrite the rule," he said. Verana's eyes burned with fierce clarity. "Together." And for the first time in years, Henrik believed it. The outpost shook again, less violently this time, as if whatever was circling them outside was reconsidering its life choices. Henrik took that as a personal victory. "Good news," he said, fingers flying over the console. "They're not firing yet." Verana arched a brow. "That is your definition of good?" "In my experience," Henrik replied, "it's the window between threatening posture and regrettable explosion. We should use it." She rolled her shoulders, testing her balance. The change in her was subtle but unmistakable. Where before her stillness had been restraint, now it was control. Hunger lingered in her biology like a low hum, present but no longer commanding. "I feel sharper," she said. "Not weaker." Henrik glanced at the readings and grinned despite himself. "Your vitals agree. Congratulations. You're officially not feral." She exhaled something that might have been a laugh. "That is a very low bar." "Trust me," he said. "Science celebrates incremental miracles." Another alert chimed, closer this time. "They're deploying drones," Henrik muttered. "Non-lethal, of course, because kidnapping is more profitable when everyone survives." Verana's eyes darkened. "They will try to take the data." "And you," Henrik added. "And you," she said pointedly. "Flattered," he replied. Deeply concerned, he began encrypting the prototype files, layering old habits over new urgency. "We need to finish stabilizing the regulator. The first integration held, but it's not sustainable yet." "You are saying I am a successful prototype," Verana said, "but an unstable one." "Exactly," he said, "which is also how my career was described." She stepped closer to the console, studying the cascading equations. "What is missing?" Henrik hesitated. "Permission." She looked at him. "Explain." "The regulator works because it allows your instincts to exist," he said, "but your biology still treats them like a threat. We need to teach it that hunger isn't failure." "That sounds philosophical." "It is," he admitted. "Unfortunately, philosophy doesn't metabolize well. We need a biological equivalent." Her long ears angled back slightly, a sign he'd learned meant deep focus. "You need feedback," she said slowly. "Positive reinforcement." Henrik snapped his fingers. "Yes, exactly. A loop that rewards restraint instead of punishing hunger." "And if restraint fails?" she asked. He met her gaze. "Then we adapt again. Not punish, not suppress." Outside, the first drone struck the outpost shields. The structure hummed in protest. "They are impatient," Verana said. "Corporate motto," Henrik replied. "We're almost there." They worked side by side, tension easing into something like trust under fire. Henrik adjusted algorithms while Verana described the internal sensations the regulator produced, where hunger rose, where it softened, where it felt, acknowledged. "That's it," Henrik said at one point. "Right there. When you choose not to act, your body needs to feel that choice matters." She closed her eyes, focusing inward. "It does feel different," she said. "Less like denial, more like authorship." Henrik's hands stilled. "That's the word," he said quietly. "You're not being controlled. You're deciding." Another impact, stronger. "They will breach us soon," Verana said calmly. Henrik nodded. "Then let's give them something they can't monetize." He initiated the final phase. The regulator pulsed, light shifting from blue to a warmer hue. Verana inhaled sharply, then steadied. The hunger flared, then settled. Not gone, balanced. She opened her eyes clearer than before. "It is quiet," she said. "Not empty. Quiet." Henrik laughed, breath shaky. "We did it." A harsh alarm cut through the moment. Shields at critical. "Of course," Henrik said. "No encore." Verana straightened, a new confidence in her posture. "They will not take this from us." Henrik grabbed a portable drive and pressed it into her hand. "Redundant backups, scattered encryption keys. Even if they get me, they won't get the science." Her fingers closed around it. "You assume they will take you?" "I assume corporations always try," he said lightly. "It's not personal." The outer door buckled. Henrik took a breath, forcing humor where fear threatened to surge. "You know, for a man hiding at the edge of space, I've had a very busy week." Verana's lips curved, sharp and genuine. You should hide less. The door blew inward. Armed agents flooded the chamber, weapons raised, voices sharp with rehearsed authority. Henrik raised his hands. Gentlemen, ladies, you're just in time for the least profitable breakthrough of your lives. Their leader stepped forward. Henrik Solon, you are in possession of proprietary research. Henrik sighed. Still using my old name. That's sloppy. Verana moved beside him, presence unmistakable. The agents hesitated. Just enough. This research belongs to my people, she said evenly, and it will not be used to bind us. The leader smiled thinly. Everything has a price. Verana met his gaze, unblinking. So does hunger, she said, and we have learned to live with it. Before anyone could react, Henrik triggered the emergency protocol. The outpost system surged, data broadcasting across multiple relays, scattering like seeds into the void. Alarms screamed, lights flickered. What did you do? The leader barked. Henrik grinned, wide and a little wild. I made it public. Chaos erupted. Agents shouted, scrambling to regain control as the station systems locked them out. Verana leaned close to Henrik. That was reckless. Thank you, he said. I've been practicing. They ran. As they fled toward the escape corridor, Verana felt the hunger stir again, then settle, obedient to her will. Not gone, but no longer in charge. And that, she realized, was everything. They escaped in a maintenance skiff designed for one purpose: not being noticed. It was cramped, ugly, and smelled faintly of burnt insulation. Henrik loved it instantly. As the skiff shot away from the outpost, alarms fading behind them, Henrik strapped in and laughed, a breathless, disbelieving sound. I just open-sourced a biological revolution, he said. That's going to look terrible on my performance review. Verana steadied herself against the bulkhead as artificial gravity settled. Her balance was surer now, movements precise without the rigid control she'd carried before. The hunger stirred, then quieted, like a tide learning new boundaries. They will not forgive you, she said. Henrik shrugged. They never did. A proximity alert flared. Henrik swore. Okay, small forgiveness window just closed. A corporate interceptor slid into view, sleek and fast, weapons tracking. They are persistent, Verana observed. Persistence is what they call obsession when it's wearing a suit, Henrik said. He yanked a lever. The skiff lurched, dumping them into a debris field. Hold on. The interceptor hesitated, recalculating. Henrik grinned. See? Indecision, our greatest ally. They burst free on the far side, engines screaming. When the stars steadied, Henrik finally exhaled. Verana sank into a seat, eyes closed briefly. I can feel it stabilizing, she said. The regulator is teaching my body to listen. Henrik glanced at her readings on a handheld. Your metrics look happy. She opened one eye. Biology does not feel happiness. Mine does when numbers behave. They set course for a neutral relay hub, old, crowded, and politically allergic to corporate violence. The skiff docked amid a tangle of ships that looked like they'd all lost different arguments with gravity. Inside the hub, the air buzzed with voices, trade, and 100 species pretending not to stare. Henrik blended easily. Verana drew looks, but none lingered long. Power here was diffuse, inconvenient to challenge. They found a quiet corner near a repair bay. Henrik set up a portable lab on a crate marked fragile, probably. I need to check long-term integration, he said. The broadcast was the first punch. This is the follow-through. Verana nodded. I will help. They worked in bursts, interrupted by announcements and the occasional argument over docking fees. The data held. More than that, it improved. This loop, Henrik murmured, adjusting parameters, it's self-correcting. When restraint succeeds, the regulator rewards it. Not with suppression, with clarity. Verana considered the sensation. I do not feel less Sanguir, she said. I feel more. Henrik smiled, small and tired. That's the goal they never paid for. A hush rippled through the hub as a broadcast cut in. News feeds replaying his data release. Commentators argued. Scientists argued louder. Corporate spokespeople smiled like predators with bad alibis. They are calling it irresponsible, Verana said. Henrik watched a panelist sputter. That's how you know it worked. A message pinged on his console. Unknown sender. He hesitated, then opened it. You broke the chain. We can help you keep it broken. Henrik frowned. That's new. Who is it? Verana asked. An old network, he said slowly. People who prefer systems without collars. Another alert. This one closer. Security teams moved through the hub, corporate insignia polished and ominous. They followed us, Verana said. Of course they did, Henrik replied. They always mistake crowds for cover. They split, weaving through corridors. Henrik ducked into a service lift, Verana close behind. The doors sealed just as voices echoed outside. The lift rattled upward. Henrik leaned back, laughing softly. I keep telling myself to choose calmer professions. Verana studied him. You could still leave. He shook his head. If I leave now, they win later. The lift opened onto a medical deck. Clean, bright, and public. Perfect. Henrik stepped forward, raising his voice. Attention, he said to no one in particular. If anyone here is allergic to corporate overreach, now would be a great time to cough loudly. A few people did. One laughed. Security arrived moments later, only to find themselves blocked by hospital protocols, patient advocates, and a very loud nurse. Time? Verana asked quietly. Henrik checked the console. Enough. He sent the final patch, an adaptive framework that made the regulator useless as a control mechanism and invaluable as a cooperative one. It required consent. Always. The network responded immediately, mirroring the release across jurisdictions. The security team's comms crackled with confusion. Verana felt the hunger rise, then settle, obedient not to fear but to choice. She straightened, presence calm and unyielding. Henrik met her gaze. How do you feel? Hungry, she said. Then after a beat, she smiled. And free. The corporate team withdrew under pressure. They couldn't fight without witnesses. The hub breathed again. They stood together amid the ordinary chaos of life continuing. What now? Henrik asked. Verana's long ears angled forward, attentive to the future. Now, she said, we teach my people that hunger is not a command, and you teach yours that science is not a leash. Henrik considered that. Busy schedule, she offered her hand. Partnership? He took it. On one condition. Name it. No more tracking me by scent. She laughed, soft, real. I will try. As they walked away, the hub lights reflected in the viewport, 1,000 paths opening at once, and for the first time, neither of them felt the urge to run. The Sanguir homeworld did not look like a place that had once terrified half the settled systems. It was bright, layered with terraces and open waterways, cities designed to breathe rather than brood. Henrik stood on a balcony overlooking the capital, hands resting on a railing warm from artificial sunlight, and wondered how many people would have paid fortunes to be afraid of something this ordinary. Stop frowning, Verana said beside him. You look like you're calculating disaster. I am, Henrik replied. It's a reflex. Also, your planet violates at least 6 of my assumptions about vampire architecture. She glanced at the gardens below. We like light, she said. It makes hiding more difficult. That explains a lot, he muttered. Below them, the plaza buzzed with activity. Clinics opened their doors. Researchers argued cheerfully over shared screens. Sanguir moved through the crowd with an ease Henrik had never seen in archived footage. No rigid control, no constant vigilance. Hunger existed, yes, but it no longer ruled the room. The regulator had been deployed for months now, voluntary, adaptive, unownable. Corporate attempts to reassert control had collapsed under the combined weight of transparency, public outrage, and a very inconvenient biological fact. The system didn't work without consent. Turns out you can't monetize free will very efficiently. Henrik leaned back against the railing. They're not feral, he said quietly. Verana smiled. They never were. He watched a group of Sanguir adolescents laughing near a fountain, playfully shoving one another. No fear, no restraint born of shame. I spent years thinking I ruined everything, Henrik said. Turns out I just stopped too early. You stopped because you were hurt, Verana said. That matters. He considered that. I suppose it does. A chime sounded behind them. A courier drone hovered politely, projecting a message. Henrik groaned when he saw the sender. Please tell me that's not... It is, Verana said, amused. Another apology. Henrik waved the message away. I've received 17 this week. Apparently I am now visionary instead of problematic. She tilted her head. How do you feel about that? Suspicious, he said. Very suspicious. They walked back inside through halls that had once been fortified against imagined monsters and were now full of open doors and impatient scientists. Henrik felt strangely at home among the chaos. Later, in the quiet of the lab they'd claimed as their own, Henrik reviewed final reports while Verana observed from a chair that had long since stopped restraining anyone. The long-term projections are stable, Henrik said. Not perfect, but honest. Verana nodded. Perfection is usually a warning sign. He smiled. I taught you that. You demonstrated it, she corrected. He glanced at her. The hunger was still there. He could see it in the way she moved, the way her senses stayed alert. But it no longer frightened him, or her. I used to think my job was to erase problems, Henrik said. Turns out it's to sit with them until they stop trying to bite. Verana laughed softly. You are improving. A signal pinged, an incoming transmission from the outer systems. Henrik stiffened, then relaxed as he read it. It's from the network, he said. They want me to lead an oversight council. Open research. Cross-species ethics. That sounds like responsibility, Verana said. I know, he replied. It's horrifying. She stood and came to his side. Will you accept? He thought of the man he'd been, hiding at the edge of space, cataloging microbes to avoid cataloging guilt. He thought of running, of how small his life had been. Yes, he said finally. On one condition. She raised a brow. You enjoy those. No ownership, ever. If they try to turn this into a leash, I walk. She extended her hand. Agreed. He took it, steady. Not running. Outside, dusk settled over the city. The artificial sun dimmed, leaving stars bright and unafraid. What will you do now? Henrik asked. Verana looked out over her people. I will lead, she said, not by pretending hunger does not exist, but by proving it does not decide who we are. He nodded. That's a good platform. And you? She asked. Henrik considered the question. The future no longer felt like something chasing him. I think, he said slowly, I'll stay visible. She smiled, sharp and warm. Careful, people might recognize you. He chuckled. I'll risk it. They stood together as night deepened, science humming quietly in the background. Not as a weapon, not as a cage, but as a conversation still unfolding. For the first time in a long while, Henrik wasn't afraid of what came next, and neither was she.